This is a production of Goshen College's Scot Radio.
Scot Radio.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Ben Schneider Show. My guest today is none other than our head coach, Goshen College cross country and track and fields, Justin Wikerd, is in the studio. So, Coach, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Schneider.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I know you were in New York this weekend. What were you doing out there, and when did you get back?
I was celebrating my wife's 40th. So her birthday was November 11th, but it's in the middle of the season. So we delayed it till after the season was over and went down from Friday through till Sunday. So it was a good time.
Yeah, you were out supporting one of our alums, actually, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Olivia.
Right.
She's working on Broadway, and she does the quick change costumes for the Moulin Rouge show, which is an unbelievable show. So we went down and supported her there and had a good time.
You had really good seats, didn't you?
Yep. We got really good seats. We're right on the stage, so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Coach, I want to, usually with my guests, I always start from the very beginning. I know you've been through college and had a lot of experiences beyond that. So I've had a couple freshmen on the past couple weeks, so there's a lot more to get into with you, I know. But I want to start, I know you're from Canada, so where did you grow up in that area, and ultimately what brought you here to the States?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo. It's like 45 minutes southwest of Toronto. I grew up there and went to high school at a Mennonite high school. And I did a little bit of everything. But in high school, I played soccer, I played basketball, volleyball, track, cross country. But yeah, so we grew up there, and I don't know, how far back do you want me to go?
You can as
far
as you want.
Well, I guess a little bit about my history. My dad was the vice principal at my school and French teacher. So every 7 years we would go on sabbatical. So when I was 5, I lived in France.
And then you went back when you were 13, right?
Yeah. So I lived in France in Nantes when I was 5, and then went to French immersion school. So half of the school was in French, half school was is English. They just split right down the middle during the day. And then when I was 13, went back to France. And when I was there, I played soccer. And that was when I first kind of found my passion for running. So, yeah.
Yeah. So are you fluent in French?
Yes.
Yes.
If I go back, right now, if I were to have a full-on conversation, it would be a little rusty. But
Sure.
I know, 2 years ago, my wife and I went to northern France, and 3 days in, it came right back and was able to have full conversations. So.
Yeah. So you said you found your passion for running through soccer.
Well,
right?
not through soccer, actually. So, I always loved playing soccer. So I played soccer on the village team. And we traveled in France.
Sure.
So we traveled all around France. But then where I really kind of found my kind of passion and talent in running was my dad was always running. So I would always bike with my dad when I was younger. But my dad was running this trail 10K. And I wanted to run this 10K with him. And he was like, no, you haven't trained. You cannot run 10 kilometers. So then I went to my mom, naturally, when my dad was on warm-up, and I said, Mom, can I run? And she's like, sure. And she signed me up and put a bib number on, and my dad got back from warm-up, and he was like, what are you wearing? And then, so he made me agree that I would stop at 5K. But I got to 5K, and I was like, I'm not stopping. And then went all the way through and ran 10K and beat him. And he was kind of like, what the heck? I think I ran a 43-minute 10K, which isn't that fast, but I guess for 13 is not too bad.
Yeah.
But I remember I was so sick the rest of the day. They have this awesome pizza pie in Alsace, if you ever go to Alsace, France, you go for tarte flambée. It's like a really thin pizza with cheese, bacon, and onions. But it was like this big festival, and I was so sick I couldn't eat it. But it was, yeah.
I've done one 10K, I think, in my life, and I think I was somewhere between 8th and 9th grade, so I was 13, 14, and it was like 90 degrees, 90% humidity, sun beating down, and I don't even remember. I think it was like 57 something was my time. Like, it was awful. So
yeah,
I would say for that age, 43 minutes is definitely not too bad, especially if your dad didn't even think you were going to be able to run the whole thing. But
yeah, he just didn't want me to push too hard.
Sure.
Yeah, that he knows me, so.
Yeah, so looking at your bio on the athletics page for Gordon, just trying to get ready for the show, I saw you went to Rockaway Mennonite Collegiate, which is in Ontario, so that was your high school. So tell me a little bit about that. I understand you're still playing multiple sports at this point. But I assume by now you found your true passion with running. But yeah, tell me about high school.
Yeah, running was always kind of my passion, and I knew that's what I was good at. But my parents wouldn't let me do so. In Canada, a lot of sports, like you have sports in school, but then you can do club sports. So like here in the States, we got a lot of like club soccer or club basketball. In Canada, there would be club cross country, club track. But they wouldn't let me do club sports. They said you need to focus on your studies. School wasn't super easy for me. So when I went to Rockaway, in the spring season, I played volleyball and ran cross country the same season. So sometimes we'd have late practice, and if we had late volleyball practice, then I would go to cross country practice, and vice versa. And then in the winter, I played basketball. And then in the spring, I did track. In my senior year, there was like this short season. It was like a month long where there was badminton. So between basketball season and the start of track, there was like a month where there wasn't anything. So I played badminton, but that didn't last long.
So you were doing like a little bit of everything.
I did a little bit of everything.
All year round.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it says, so you lettered all 4 years?
Yep.
I assume this is in cross country still?
Yeah, I lettered in all the sports.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
So
yeah. And athlete of the year twice.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I got athlete of the year my junior and senior year.
Is that something like coaches voted on, or your teammates?
The school, the coaches vote on it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. So you came to the States after high school. You went to Goshen. I know that. Talk me through the decision-making process for college. Like, what was staying in Canada an option? What other schools were you looking at in the States, if any?
Yeah.
How much did running play a factor in that?
So first thing is, like, I took a year off between high school and college. My parents said that I could run club track once I graduated. So I actually ran for Tri-City Track Club under Peter Grinsberg for a year, and then I worked as a lifeguard and ran. So I kind of just spent that year between high school and college training. And I was really big into art and the sciences, English, writing, not my strong points, math, no thank you. But what I decided to apply for is I wanted to go to University of Guelph for landscape architecture. And it's one of the like top landscape architecture programs in North America. So I really wanted to go to get into this, and University of Guelph had like a prime time, really good cross country team. They'd come down to the States and run all the time, and yeah, so I kind of applied to get in. I had like submitted my art portfolio, and I got in. But before I decided to make my decision, my dad had like called Goshen. So both my dad graduated from Goshen College in Indiana, and he knew the athletic director. And he called the athletic director and gave him my times. And then the coach called me up and was like, "Hey, I'd like you to come to Goshen. We have some money for you, blah, blah, blah. So push come to shove, I ended up deciding to go to school in the States and run for Goshen. They're an NAIA school. And I kind of was pretty adamant about not going to a Mennonite school and for college.
So what changed?
I don't know. I guess I just followed in my parents' footsteps and went to the Christian school. And I was there. My plan was to leave after a year. My plan was to run there for a year and then transfer out to a bigger school. But I kind of made a good group of friends and ended up sticking it out. And I'm glad for it because that's where I met my wife. And
yeah. So I know you said you were into the arts and sciences mostly. So I assume your major and what you wanted to do for a career was kind of in that realm
so
at this point?
I ended up I graduated with a physical education degree.
Okay.
So I was a PE, to be a physical education teacher. So so it was kinesiology and education was what I graduated with. So kind of went art went out the door and kind of went more into
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have any stories from any particular meets that you remember or any of the highlights of your college career, but I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to share.
I can remember the first cross country race.
Sure, go ahead.
The first cross country race. Some people have heard this story, but everything in Canada is in kilometers,
right?
And in the States, everything's in miles. So I was running my first race, and with a K to go, I always kicked real hard. And with a mile to go, my coach is like, 1 to go. And in my brain, that clicked as 1K. And I hammered, and I still, to this day, I don't remember crossing the finish line. Apparently, I collapsed, 100 meters from the finish line, and, somehow crawled and made my way across the finish line. But I don't remember that last 100 meters.
But did you realize in that moment, after you had gone 1,200, 1,300?
Oh, yes,
that you were...
yes, most definitely. I'm pretty bullheaded in the fact that once I go, I'm not gonna back off at any point until I cross the line. So I'm I just gonna go until I can't go anymore, and that's what I did.
Yeah. So I guess that's the big meet that stands out to you.
That's one of that's one of the crazy kind of weird experiences from college. I remember running we raced at IU a lot. I loved running their cross country course. I was on the 4x4 relay at Goshen, and we still hold the school record for the 4x4.
Wow. Okay. What is it?
It's 3:17.
Okay. That's pretty good. Yeah.
So it was I forget what the math was, but it was basically 3 guys going 49 and 1 guy going 48. But I remember we got invited to go to the IU, Indiana University's Division I invitational. And we went to their meet and we beat them, and their A team, and they didn't invite us back the next year. And that same year, we also went to Purdue's indoor meet. And beat their A and B squad. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's a nice segue. I wanted to get into your track career a little bit. So I guess obviously you're doing 4x4.
Yeah.
What other events were you competing
So
in?
In high school, I did a little bit of everything. So in high school, I ran, my main events were the 8 and the 15. But then every year I would do a different field event. So my senior year, I did the 8, the 15, and the high jump. But then in college, I ran the 4x4, the 8, and the 15 on the track.
So, and did you do an open 4 at all, or was it just relays?
I every now and then would do an open 4, but not that often. Yeah. I don't know how many times, maybe 3 or 4 times I did an open 4.
What kind of times were you putting down for all of your events?
So, I'm trying to remember what my 15 time. I ran a 1:57 for the 8. And a 49 second for the 4. And then I don't remember what my 15 time was.
Okay. Yeah, that's not quite at our 800 record. I know there's one guy, Marty Maloney, who's like 9 years ago. He set the 8 and the 15, and a couple of the oldest records on the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that's like I'm a 2:15 kind of guy, or I was last season. Hopefully, I'll be a little bit faster this year. But I know it's a really fast pace. So.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you because, again, looking at your page, there's kind of this gap from when you were in college to when you came back to coach. So, kind of like mid-2000s. Where were you in your life at that point?
So,
what were you doing?
What I was doing was like I was a middle school teacher, taught middle school PE, and woodshop, and then I coached for a few years at the middle school level. But then a couple years out of college, I ran for Philadelphia Track Club down in Philly. But then the commute got to be too much. It was like an hour commute right after school. Like I would teach all day, then I would coach, and then I would go drive down and go to practice, and it got to be too much. So then a little bit of like athletically wise, I don't remember what year it was, maybe 2000, I don't know when it was, 2007, 2004 maybe. I had this kind of like switch where I kind of went from middle distance running, and that was like my main focus, to I went like the complete extreme into ultra marathon running. And I was paging through this magazine, and I saw this race called the Trans Rockies Race. It was a 6-day stage race through the Rocky Mountains. And I wanted to find, running had given me so much in my life that I wanted to find a way to give back by using my gift of running. So I decided to raise money for an organization. It was Agros. And we raised, I forget how much we raised, close to $10,000. And that money goes to work with landless communities in South America. So I used that race as kind of a segue to transition. And, I went from running mid-distance to running 5 marathons in a row. And then for a long time, I was just doing kind of ultra-marathon style running. And then coaching-wise, I coached at the middle school level for, I think it was like 3 or 4 years. And then my wife and I went to Germany for a year and a half. And that's where my son was born, back in 2008. And then
when the Phillies won the World Series, right?
Yep. Yeah. The day they won the World Series, he was born. So I remember I walked into the hospital with the Phillies hat on.
Sure.
The Germans had no idea what baseball was, but it was great. And then after that, when we moved back, I was hired as the high school cross-country coach and the mid-distance and distance track coach.
This is Doc Mennonite?
This is at Doc Mennonite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a nice segue again. Well, tell me about your experience there. I know you were there for a good time period.
Yeah, I was there for a while. Awesome place, awesome community. Yeah, I loved it there. Coached a lot of good runners. We had a lot of I had a very talented 800-meter girl who's now coaching herself up in New Hampshire. She ran 2:13 for the 8. And had some great 800-meter 4x8s, 4x4s. I just love the community aspect of Doc. It was always a stretch getting people to come out, but once they came out, they worked hard, and I really enjoyed it.
Sure. Yeah. So I know you're certified. Again, your bio and all the emails you send, it's in the footer and everything. USA Track and Field Level 3 Certified Endurance and IAAF Level 5 Certified Endurance. And I don't think it mentions it here, but I think you've got a certification in jumping too somewhere along there.
Level 2, yeah.
Yeah, so if you could just explain to the folks listening and to me, because I don't know too much about what the different levels mean and all that, what goes into getting a certification with these organizations and what do you have to do?
So like with USA Track and Field, they have a structured program. Level 1 is pretty general and kind of overarching everything. You go for a weekend and you get certified. Level 2 is more in depth. It's a week-long course. You go, so like a couple of years ago, Corinne and I both went out to get certified in our jumps and get our level 2. So it's a week long, and you sit like in classes all day, you do some seminars, you do some practical coaching, and then at the end you have to take a big long test. And then the level 3 and level 5 IAAF are like the same thing. One is the international governing body, and the other is USA. But that's the highest level of coaching you can get in your specialty, certification-wise. But that's a much more comprehensive project. So for the level 3, you have to go for a week-long course. So I went to Florida for a week. And then at the end of that week, you have to do a project on an athlete. And then you have to come up with what your goals are for that athlete, like, and how you are going to accomplish those goals. And then you have to organize a team around that athlete, team of physical therapists, lifting coaches, dietitians, whatever that team of people that is going to be surrounding that athlete. And then you're kind of the lead person, and you have to manage that team. And then you have to come up with the project, and it's over a year of training. And then at the end, it all comes down to the end, was she successful? For me, I used one of my athletes that I coached in Pennsylvania. So this is going like jumping. We moved up to Boston for my wife's work. And I had a very talented miler back in Pennsylvania, and she was a junior. And I had an awesome group of athletes as well on top of that. But when we moved up here, the coach that came in and replaced me asked if I would coach her through her senior year so that her training didn't change. So then I coached her from up here in Boston, and I would go down like once a month and like to give a workout.
Are you at Gordon at this point?
I am not at Gordon at this point.
So you took a year off from being a
when I moved up here, I didn't have any connections.
Okay.
I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. So I was trying to make connections, finding a job. So while I was doing that, I think that really maintained my sanity. I was able to continue coaching. Now it was from a distance. But I'd go down, I guess it was twice a month I would go down. I would go down for one of her meets, and I would go down for 1 or 2 workouts, and then that type of thing. But her project was over a full year of her training, and at the end, did she hit her goal, and why? And then you have to write a whole paper on why and how everything worked, and then you submit that to the head of the IAAF, and they kind of go through your project and make sure that like you analyzed your information properly, and then you get your certification.
So the top level is like a year-long, extensive. So it takes a while.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from that, and it was really neat, because really what they're looking for is to see if you can manage a team of people around a professional athlete.
Right. So I guess you answered the first part of the question. What brought you up here to this area? I guess it was your wife's work.
Yeah.
But you said you had no connections, right? I was going to say minimal connections, but you had no connections.
I really had no connections. So
how did you end up here at Gordon?
So interesting story. So like when I was coaching back in Pennsylvania, I really wanted to break into the college realm, but things weren't kind of falling into place. My wife got this offer to move up here for her work, and a week later, I got an offer to go coach down in Virginia. And we were like, okay, weigh the things. Coaching, you don't make that much money. Being a public accountant, making partner, you're going to make a lot more money. So we're like, you know what? The pay jump was enough that it allowed me to take a year and just try and make connections to try and get into the college world. So we moved up here, And I started reaching out and making connections and trying to find positions, whether it was taking a volunteer position, no pay, or whatever that was. And I was set up to coach at UMass Lowell as a volunteer coach. And then an opening opened at a local high school. It was a pretty big high school. And the coach at UMass Lowell said, take that job. You'll get to know the colleges in the area. It's paid. You can come back here anytime you want. I'll bring you back. I'll bring you on whenever you want a position at the college level. So I said, all right, here we go. So then I took this job, and that was the spring season of that year. And about a month into it, I realized this is not the right place for me. It wasn't a very great experience. But then when I was starting to lose hope, all of a sudden, Gordon called me up and was like, hey, I hear you're in the area. And I'm like, Gordon College who? I didn't know anything about Gordon. But I had a few athletes that ran track for a season or two that played other sports here. And they heard that I was in the area, and they were looking for a cross-country and a track coach. And I remember having a talk with John Timon. I said, I need to finish my season here before I give you an answer. And he said, all right, take your time. And I was in Dublin, Ireland when I decided with my wife, where we made the decision to come to Gordon. And it's been a great experience ever since. So,
yeah. So this is 2016. Yeah. So this is your fourth year here. I want to ask you, because I've been here, I guess my first year was your second, so I've been here for most of your time here. But just tell me a little bit about, from a coaching perspective, how the cross-country and track programs have evolved, improved, or whatever since you've been here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've really grown as a family. For me, in my faith base, I really see God in community. So when I came in, that's the one thing I wanted to make sure that we established right off the bat, was that we're a family. We're going to establish a community, and then we're going to go from there. And I always look at developing an athlete over a 4-year period, whether they're super fast or super slow, and trying to identify people's gifts and trying to help them through that. So, I mean, I just feel like we've evolved. We've grown, definitely. We've grown in numbers. We were pretty small my first year. I think Toro was on the team, and Angie was on the team, DJ. Those are the seniors that started with me. Bridget Mellon came in a little bit later. But we had, I think, all of seven girls on the cross-country team and like 11 guys or something like that. And then on the track team, I think we were a total of 26. And, every year it's kind of grown. And the hardest part is kind of continuing that culture of community and being there for each other.
Yeah, I remember occasionally, like DJ and I, or David and I will talk, and they'll think about their freshman years, and they'll say, like, everybody went to New England because not everybody ran, because there were 8 or 9 people on the team, but they were the first and second alternates by default because there was nobody else because the team was so small. But yeah, so the team's huge now. We got so many great athletes. So what's the recruitment process look like? How do you reach out to applicants and tell them about the program and try to get them involved?
Yeah, so Corinne's been doing a lot of that work behind the scenes. Really, like, I try and reach out through emails or phone calls or texts to athletes that kind of I see coming through the pipeline. But Corinne's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, trying to reach out to a broader group. And then once we get them on campus, then I kind of take over with taking them on campus, setting them up with our athletes. So it's been a process, and it's been a learning experience for me. But it's hard to do all the recruiting and coaching for basically 4 teams year round. So I've kind of really leaned on Corinne to kind of do some of that behind the scenes work of the emails out and casting the broad net. And then athletes are starting to do it, Athletes are the ones that are going to really fuel the program, because you go back out and reach out to your community and talk about the program, and that's going to get people's interests. So as we grow and as we evolve as a team, that's really where I think a lot of the work comes in, is through athletes and alumni.
What's the most rewarding part about being the head coach here?
Having an impact in people's lives. I want to prepare people for the real world. And college is hard, but not nearly as hard as the real world.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's probably the most rewarding, is watching people go through the program, graduate, and then being successful in life outside is the most rewarding.
Yeah, so where do you see this program, say, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? I assume you've been here for a while now. You're in it for the long haul. What would you like to see this program become?
Yeah, our first step would be to be conference champions. That's the first goal. And then, once we get to be conference champions, then looking at being at the in the top in the New England region. And I feel like if we can get ourselves to the top of the conference, we can make a pretty quick jump to the top in the region, which would get us to nationals. So,
yeah, and I think that's confirmed, right? I saw the schedule you handed out at the track meeting. We're hosting conferences for
we
track
are hosting
this year.
Conference, yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What's that whole? I know we got a brand new surface a couple years ago. But what's the process been like to get the track ready to be able to host an official meet?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one. We've had a lot of donors come in and step up for us. So
that's really all you need.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a process, and I'm excited to get it up and running and host conference.
Do we have everything except the bar on the inside?
We need the rail, and we need high jump and pole vault mats.
High jump mats, that's right.
High jump and pole vault.
Yeah.
So once we get those things, then we're good to go. But I've been told it's happening. So
yeah, that'll be fantastic. All right. Well, I know you saw my social media. I put out some.
Oh boy.
I put out a call to my followers. Wanted to get some input from the community, some questions I could ask you. So Will Lott, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, is also the host of the Fresh Take here on Scot Radio. Normally has a show after me. His question's very simple. What do you want to achieve this track season? We had a great year on the cross country side. Now, what do you want to do getting into the track part of the year?
Yeah, so I would like to see, our guys squad hasn't been as strong in the past. Our women have been pretty strong on the track. I would like to see us putting, one, maybe 2 people in the top 3, top 4 in the conference in each event. And I'm pretty confident that we can do that. We have a really strong freshman class coming in. So I'd love to see that. And if we do that, we're going to put some pretty big dents in Rogers and Nichols's numbers to be Biden for a strong chance at conference champions in the track team.
So I've got a friend from just motorsports connections online. Hunter Miller lives out in California. He just wants to know if you have any tips on how to better your aerobic or running ability, tips to extend your endurance. He was telling me this afternoon he used to be a runner. He's trying to get back into the 7-minute mile range. He's not quite where he used to be. So what advice would you have for somebody in his situation?
Yeah, time.
Time?
You got to put the time in. So there's a saying that speed is developed in weeks. Aerobic system is developed in months to years. So time. And that can be, depending on age. I don't know how old he is. Putting in miles or minutes of trying to stay in like a aerobic zone. So you want to be, I don't know, it's hard to say without knowing him, but if you can do a number of runs where you're in your conversation talk would be in 2 to 3 words, you're going to be in a good zone to be able to build your aerobic system. And you can do that where it's running, or if your body can handle running 5-6 days a week, great. If your body can't handle running 5-6 days a week, then make it like running 3 days a week and then getting on a bike and staying kind of in that zone. For our young college kids, sitting in the like 160 beats to 170 beats per minute heart rate range is like where a lot of you guys build your aerobics. But now, as you get older, that your max heart rate drops. So that's why I bring in the bit of that conversation. If you can speak in 2 to 3 word sentences, you're kind of right in the pocket.
Sure.
To build that aerobic system.
So Chase Strauss is out of country already on vacation a little bit early, but he's got a little bit of a not so serious fun question for you.
Sure.
How many times have you eaten Canadian poutine, he says?
Oh, yeah? Yeah, poutine doesn't really sit well in my stomach. If I eat it, I'm in the bathroom like 20 minutes later. So I have eaten it multiple times, and I haven't learned my lesson. So, yes. Do you know what Canadian, or you know what poutine is?
I have an idea.
But it's fries
Yeah.
with cheese curds on it, and then hot gravy poured over top. And it kind of melts the cheese, and it's so delicious. And that's why I just can't resist it. But
yeah,
I pay the price every time.
Yeah. Ryan Locke just wrote a XC experience, which I know we talked a lot about. But is there anything you remember just from the last few years at Gordon that is like a one special memory you want to share, or anything you remember from your own career?
Oh, man. I would say, so one of the defining moments of really seeing the culture really start here was, what was that, 2 years ago? 2 years ago when our women's team came second in the conference, but they ran highest place in New England's. 2 of the girls were the fast, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But of that experience, the one thing that is always ringing in my head and that I remember vividly was the night before New England Championships when we sat in a circle. And they initiated, we want to remember everybody on the team, and we want to go around the circle and talk about everybody on the team so that we have those vivid memories and we know who we're running for at New England's tomorrow. And that alone was the most defining moment and satisfying moment as a coach here. That's where the culture, I was like, it's finally happening. It took some time, but it's finally happening.
Yeah. So this is a personal question of mine. Then I just wanted to ask. I know you're a very busy man on meet day, because not only are you coaching us, you're also holding your camera, taking as many photographs as you can to get up on our social media and on our website. So I guess you kind of got into this. I know you said you were interested in the arts. Is that where your passion for photography started?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I was never really a photographer. It wasn't until I started coaching here that I went around and started. I think it was my second year here. I was getting frustrated that we didn't have any pictures of our team because nobody comes out and takes pictures. So I said, you know what? I'm going to teach myself how to do this. I have a pretty good eye, and went and bought a camera and started taking photos. And that's kind of where I had a little bit of a passion growing there. I love it. It keeps me settled during the day too. Allows me to.
Yeah. You got like a official watermark now and everything.
Oh yeah,
too, right?
yeah. The Katie Wolf, it's not Wolf now. I forget what the last name is, but Katie, the softball coach, made that watermark for me. And then Sinead, the head, Sinead's cousin drew the head, but then Katie put the whole thing together for me.
Yeah. So you're like totally self-taught. You've had like no formal training or experience. Wow, that's kind of amazing to me because I know you take such fantastic photographs. But I guess when it's something you're passionate about, something you really want to learn, the results can come from that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Coach, thank you for coming on and telling your story. I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of the team feels the same way, but I want to thank you for everything you've given me these last 2.5 years. And I know we've got a couple more seasons together before I graduate. So I definitely want to make the most of those. And I know you do too. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to some great things in 2020 and beyond for this program. So it's gonna be a fun ride.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you to the team for believing in me, and it's been just as the team gives me a lot. So, and is always there, like my team always feels my team, my family, not just me, feels really connected. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I know we all really appreciate everything you pour your heart and soul into this program, and it really shows. So thank you for everything. All right. Well, everybody, if you're listening live, Will Lott's Fresh Take's not coming up next. Most people are already headed out for Thanksgiving break. So everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy some time off. We're going to be back next week, same time, same place. Courtney Robinault, comm arts student here at Gordon, is going to be my guest. I'm looking forward to that. And I think we'll have one more week of shows after that before it's Christmas time and get an even longer time off for winter break. So it's coming up fast. So until then, we'll see you next time. I'm Ben Schneider. Have a good night, everybody.